All right, what's going on, everybody? Jameson here. Now, earlier today, I asked, should Christians engage in politics? And if so, how? Now, this is a question that should be pretty obvious, but unfortunately, in the day and age that we live in, it's not, at least when it comes to the mainstream church. Now, the movie Nefarious was made available to stream, and I'm not even going to lie, I've watched it 3 times already this weekend. And the plot of the movie has to do with a psychiatrist named James who has to make sure a prisoner on death row is fit to stay execution. Now, this psychiatrist is also an atheist, and the prisoner claims to be demon possessed. The prisoner's name is Edward, but the demon claims his name is Nefarious. Now, look, I don't want to give anything away, but I do want to bring your attention to something in the movie that I believe goes with the question that I posed earlier. So Nefarious states that there's a battle going on, and it's not just about me, you, or him, that it's about everyone, the entire human race, all of them against all of us. Now remember, James is a psychiatrist who is also an atheist, but James boasts that if that's the case, that Nefarious and the other demons aren't doing too well. So Nefarious asks if James really believes that. And James says that, well, yeah, we've never been freer, that literacy is at an all-time high, that we're working to eliminate racism and intolerance, gender inequality. People can love who they want, they can be who they want, they can do what they want. That diversity is no longer a dream, that hate speech is no longer tolerated, and that politically, we're reclaiming the moral high ground. Now, keep in mind that James is an atheist saying all these things, okay? Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that atheists can't also be moral. That's not what I'm saying. But it's important to understand that James himself is an atheist in this process. Now, Nefarious smiles and tells James that he thinks he loves him. And then Nefarious hits him with some facts. That the average high school graduate reads at a 6th grade level. That you have basketball players making $30 million a year decrying racism, all while wearing sneakers made from slave labor. Then Nefarious hits him by saying, right now, your world has 40 million slaves, more than the Romans had at the height of their empire. And then he says, you want to know the best part, though, James? That half of those, are sex slaves. And then he goes on to say that, as for hate speech, that we came up with that all on our own. So Nefarious laughs, and James says he fails to see the humor. And Nefarious then says, well, it's over. That they have accomplished these things right to our face. And now there's evil everywhere, and no one even cares. Now, I want to stop for a second. And do you feel that way? Do you feel like right now there's evil everywhere and no one even cares? We have the World Economic Forum has literally said, they put out PowerPoint presentations. They're on video stating that Agenda 2030, we will own nothing and be happy, right? All these things have been done right in front of our noses, right in front of our faces, and no one even cares. So James said that he disagreed, and Nefarious replied by saying, proving that we achieved our goal. Wow. That's exactly what the enemy wants. They want us to disagree that liberty no longer exists. They want us to embrace tyranny. Right now, there are Republicans, and here's the deal, guys, is that Republican, Democrat, those parties are dead. Okay, that's why we call it the uniparty. This satanic, demonic, communist, Marxist ideologies has infiltrated our government in both parties at every level. And that's why whenever we call out certain politicians for example, like my opponent. Now, I will never, ever attack my opponent. The only thing that I've ever done is try to show the inconsistencies in his rhetoric versus his voting record. But this is why we call people who call themselves Republicans rhinos, Republican in name only. So I just want to throw this out there. Rhino is not R-H-I-N-O, right? We're not talking about the animal. We're talking about rhino, R-I-N-O. That stands for Republicans in name only. So I know there's a lot of people out there that need to hear that. I appreciate your heart, and I appreciate the fact that you look at, like, my opponent, you want to call him a rhino. Just make sure you understand what that actually means. This is why it's important to know the voting records of anyone that calls themselves a conservative, a Republican, you name it. But let's just kind of backtrack a little bit. What does this movie have to do with the question of should Christians engage in politics? The answer is everything. You see, there's no freedom without absolute moral truth. There is no absolute moral truth without an objective moral standard. And there is no objective moral standard within ourselves because we're fallible. We're subjective. What's right for me may not be right for you. So how can then, and this is also where we come up with the term your truth. Well, that's your truth, but that's not my truth. No, there has to be, murder is either wrong or it's not. And if you say that murder, it's something that as a society that we've accepted as morally wrong, well, what happens when you go to a society where it's not? Or let's say human sacrifice. There are still cultures out there right now where human sacrifice is not seen as evil. So does that mean that they're right? That murder's not wrong for them, but it just is for us? See, this is subjective truth. It's not real truth. It's opinions. We have to have an objective morality of which we're going to make laws. And that objective standard can't come from within us because we're fallible. Therefore, it has to come from somewhere outside of ourselves, like God. Now, consider this. At a U of H study of roughly 15,000 writings of our founding fathers, they found that the most often quoted source used by the founding fathers was the Bible at 34%. When truth and facts have been replaced by personal opinion instead of an absolute moral standard, it's no wonder that the fastest growing forms of religion in America today are non-religion and anti-religion. True freedom can only come from God. And our founding fathers understood this, especially whenever you consider that the normal model of government in 1776 was based on this idea that power flowed from God to the king, then to the people. But the American model of government reversed the last two, so that power flows from God directly to the people, and then power is given to the government only as the people deem appropriate. Because if government does not give us our freedom and our liberty, then government cannot rightfully take it away. Thomas Jefferson even noted that the firm basis of liberty was for people to remember that liberty is a gift from God, not government. It's also why Dr. Benjamin Rush, who is referred to as one of three of the most prominent founding fathers, and is also known as the founding father of public schools under the Constitution, he taught that the purpose of public schools is to teach students to love and serve God, their country, and their families. And now some of you might be saying, well, God, country, and family, shouldn't it be God, family, and then country? Well, Dr. Rush put country before family because he understood that if we ever lost control of our country, it would become the great enemy of our families. So the blessings of liberty, they don't come from man. They come from God. Not Allah, not Buddha, and not man, but the God of the Bible. But here's the deal, guys. What happens if we remove God from the equation? I mean, God is our foundation. And by the way, freedom of religion, not freedom from religion, also comes from the Bible. Just look at Joshua 24:15. That is our foundation. But what happens whenever you remove a foundation out from underneath us? Or let's look at it this way. What happens if you remove a foundation from underneath a building? You see, you can move the building, you can move that building and put it on another foundation, but that foundation stays there, right? But if you remove the foundation out from underneath the building, then what happens? That building will collapse. And, I've recently had Christians tell me, but Jameson, I respect all beliefs and I don't want to force my beliefs on anyone else. Now, look, recognizing our foundation isn't forcing our beliefs on anyone. It solidifies and respects their liberty to choose. Because remember, liberty doesn't come from us. It doesn't come from government. It comes from God. But if we don't recognize that, then how can we respect someone else's right to choose who or how they worship? Now, look, at the risk of offending people, I'm also going to call this out. If you are a real Christian that believes Jesus when he said that no one comes to the Father except through me, and you recognize that heaven and hell are real and that faith in Jesus Christ is the only thing that can save us, if that's really what you believe, then you should also recognize that sharing your faith isn't forcing your faith on someone. It's warning them. It's sharing the good news of the gospel. That's what the gospel means. It literally means good news. If you call yourself a Christian and you choose to ignore Christ's commands to take the gospel to the ends of the earth and to make disciples of all nations, does this mean you're smarter than God? Have you cornered the market on God? What gives you the right to play God by refusing to let your light shine? You're like someone who notices a person who fell asleep on the railroad tracks, and instead of waking them up and warning them that there's a train coming, so they don't die, instead of warning them, you choose to leave them alone because you don't want to force reality on them. It's ridiculous. If you warn them of the reality of the situation and then they choose to ignore you, then you've done all you can do, but at least respect them enough to give them the choice and to make that decision for themselves. So, should Christians engage in politics? And if so, how? Now more than ever, our nation is in need of biblical citizens who grasp the dynamic unity of citizens of the kingdom of God and citizens of this great nation. And that's why on July 6th, I'll be leading another constitutional class called Biblical Citizenship in Modern America. Now, this will be a virtual class, and you can join us over Zoom. So it doesn't matter if you live here in Texas, here in the district, locally, anywhere in the country. It's going to be virtual, so you can join us on Zoom. Now, this course will offer a quick start guide to the longest standing constitution in history, complete with an overview of all the articles and amendments. And what really sets this class apart from other constitutional courses is the interactive, fast-paced presentations. It is not boring, okay? We'll be looking at fabulous locations like Independence Hall and the Wall Builders Library, and then also our biblical heritage intricately woven throughout the entire course, how that is done. You will learn how our founding fathers relied on our Christian beliefs and biblical worldview to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. You'll also be treated to encouraging historical facts and inspirational true stories that are not taught in our educational institutions today. I don't even like calling them educational institutions because they're indoctrination camps. So all in all, you're going to be edified and equipped to operationalize your faith and practice biblical citizenship in modern America. So if you'd like to join us for this class, go ahead and comment "I'm in" below, and I'll be in touch. So again, if you want to join us for this class, comment "I'm in" below, and I will personally be in touch. Here's the deal, guys. We're not just in the middle of a cultural war, okay? But this is a spiritual war. And it's time to wake the sleeping Davids inside of each of us to slay the giants of tyranny. So again, comment "I'm in" below, and I look forward to you joining us for biblical citizenship in modern America.